I am the mighty Oz. Good morning, everyone. I know it rankles many of you, but sometimes I have to say it because it needs to be said. If you could be here and you're not, you'll never know what you won't get. Not every day is the same. The speaker is not the same every day, although his intention remains the same. But the curse of being a sleeping human being is that you believe unless you change the nature of the day, it's going to be the same. And everything you do to change the nature of the day doesn't change the nature of the day. It convinces you when you get lucky that somehow you changed yourself and you didn't. Self-change, real transformation requires self-knowledge. And it is something dearly paid for and usually never paid for by most human beings. Our subject today is self-knowledge. The last part of that key lesson read that learning to watch these thoughts and feelings like the leaves that are moved through the tree is better than being carried away by every breeze that passes through you. You must begin to understand, and you will if you work, stay close, that reactions are in fact like leaves in the wind. They are always being moved, and you are always being moved with them because you identify with every last one. And you have no idea how subtle that is, but we will have a chance to look at this deeply today. So that whether we're willing to admit it or not, and most of us aren't, if I'm angry, afraid, if I'm rushing, if I'm nervous, I'm self-involved, in those moments I am in effect the unconscious instrument, a leaf that has been picked up by the wind of some reaction and then washed away, only to find myself wherever that particular reaction leaves me, and then sitting there to be picked up by another reaction. I love the fall. My wife doesn't, because I like to see the wind like the God that it is toy with the leaves, which are like sleeping human beings. And it's so extraordinary to see this because you can begin to see the parallel in your own life if you were even willing to suspect that your anger is not a power, that your ambition cannot lead you anywhere, that your certainty is nothing but uncertainty masked as the wish to be secure. You start to see this, then you begin to understand that I'm always being moved by every reaction that passes through me. It's indubitable, can't be doubted, indubitable. And you would think, would you not, that for all of our failed efforts, because what is it that you're trying to free yourself from? In essence, the remains of the last reaction. What it told you to do, who it put you in relationship with, all the things that you thought would be allowing you to rule yourself if you just let that last reaction deliver you where it promised you would become something other if you just went along with it. Yay? And I don't know when it happens, but at some point in your spiritual development, you will want to know more about your reactions than you will want your reactions to tell you who you are and what they know. You'll be interested in your reactions instead of the unwitting subject of them, as you are now. Without a doubt, every reaction controls your mouth, controls where your eyes go. It controls what you listen to and what you hear. Whereas we're going to look at something entirely different than that so that we can begin to understand these reactions and how we might, through self-knowledge, gain access into another world. Bring up the second key lesson, please. Read along with me if you will. No reaction has the wisdom, let alone the awareness to resolve the purpose of its temporary appearance. It is powerless to solve the mystery of itself. no reaction has the wisdom, let alone the awareness to realize the purpose of its temporary appearance. It is powerless to solve the mystery of itself. Now you see, you know that. When I make it clear, obviously my reactions are powerless to solve the mystery of my misery that keeps being shifted and changed into some kind of joy that then becomes the source of my next negative reaction when it's challenged. And my life just goes along in this unchallenged mystery. At some point, you're going to have to challenge the mystery of your reactions, which is the same as saying you're going to have to challenge the mystery of yourself. Shall we do it? I hope that you're willing to do this. We're going to have a fascinating, I was singing in the car. My wife said, "What are you singing?" I was singing, "All Aboard for the Magical Mystery Tour." Because we're going to journey into a great mystery. And that's why I said, I don't know why you wouldn't be here. Nice deep breath. Every reaction begins as the timeless intersection and interaction of a confluence of active and passive forces. Every reaction, how do I say this? All things in creation, that is created, has its moment of birth. There's nothing that comes into creation that isn't born into creation from creation itself. Follow me? Every reaction is a kind of birth. It is the birth of a moment in which what is timeless and active begins to work on what is passive and in time. What is divine of heaven comes to work upon what is of earth and in time. That interaction is the intersection of what is divine with what is earthly. That interaction is the first reaction. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. This is the meaning of that phrase. It was the first interaction, and it was the first intersection that brought about creation. Following me? It's big stuff, and I'll get back down to earth, but I want you to have the big picture. So that in this subsequent interaction of these forces takes place what we call, mistakenly, a reaction. This reaction that is the confluence of these forces that are intersecting and interacting with one another is a, in quotes, divine reaction. It has no name. It is nameless. How could it be anything other than nameless? It comes from what has no name, and it comes into what has no name. But in the marriage, in the confluence of these forces, there is a sudden awareness of both that which has come and that which it has come into. And that moment that we call a reaction is not this reaction we name, but we name that moment so that we can have some sense of control over the subsequent, the second reaction that we experience as a disturbance. Because when this entirety of creation in us is acted on, it is disturbed. It is like Lazarus called out of the tomb. "Wake up! Come out," said the light. And the light acted on the darkness, and the darkness knew it not, but it was raised from its tomb. And you and I don't know that the moment of this intersection and the interaction of these forces is something calling upon us to come out of the tomb of this thought nature, so that we might begin to understand that our life is not made up of all of the reactions we have to the disturbance, because the disturbance unto itself is complete unto itself and brings about a new birth through itself that requires no name and must never have one, by the way, which is scriptural. A little too much is coming out. Let me dial back a little bit. The purpose of this initial awareness, because that's what this intersection and interaction creates, is awareness. The light itself, the forces that act, are not aware of themselves. It is said that angels have no choice. They have no will of their own. They are at the behest and behalf of that divinity which uses them to act upon its creation, so that these nameless forces that do not know themselves act upon a nameless, unknown earth that does not know itself, that lives in the dark of itself. And when they act together, they bring about this creation. You can see it as surely as I've talked 1,000 times about how light comes into a leaf and not only brings about in the leaf the new life that's required for the tree, but you and I are no different than that. But the problem is that this initial disturbance, which is inseparable from the initial awareness of it. Yes or no? The initial, here, suddenly I'm aware of something. Suddenly I'm aware of myself. But the moment that there is this awareness of this self, which is this divine, I'm using the word reaction, I don't like it. This divine interaction, that's the word I want. It is an interaction. It is not caused. Hard to understand for us. It has no cause. That interaction is picked up by the nature in which, that darkness in which it is unfolding, and then that interaction becomes a reaction. That interaction becomes what we will call the second reaction. And this second reaction exists only when what? When something in me wants to know what has caused this disturbance in me. So that second reaction is like an echo. It is issued from the caverns of that tomb-like unconscious mind, from out of which comes the names and the explanations and all the reasons why I feel like I do. Reactions define for you the feelings that start namelessly. The awareness that doesn't begin or end has a beginning and an end with every reaction that defines it, confines it to the known. Am I, please? So that this conditioned mind, which is totally in the past, all the knowledge of humanity, it is brought forth in a rush in order to hold and have authority over this reaction that it doesn't know immediately what it is, so it begins to relegate it to the known, so that it begins to have what it calls authority over the second reaction. Still, everybody following me? So that interaction of intersecting forces produces this awareness, produces life. Can you see that? That's what life is. The will of heaven upon the will of earth. Now, what becomes of these two wills? Nature has no choice. But you and I, as a human being, by the grace of God, and some might feel sometimes the curse of God, have this possibility of being able to use the moment of this intersecting confluence of forces that produces the awareness, so that instead of then being confined and defined by the second reaction that's telling us, this is what happened, this is what you have to do, for the first time we realize, you know what? I've been telling myself, I've been listening to a reaction tell me for 1,000,000 years what has happened and what I need to do to be self-ruling. And for 1,000,000 years, and it's not exaggeration, I have not escaped, we have not, humanity has not escaped the captivity activity of that consciousness that calls the second reaction to real life, life itself. Slight pause. We're going to make a transition. Ready, set, go. Our experience of this second reaction, and we're clear on that, right? There's that which is nameless, which has no beginning and no end, just as awareness has no name, no beginning and no end. But out of that awareness, out of that moment, this consciousness not knowing what to do with the sudden disturbance in itself, which, by the way, calls for the death of itself as it is known itself. The first thing that comes is this second reaction. The second reaction is always binary. The second reaction is always binary, meaning that this reaction, yes or no, is always, I want this, I don't want that. Is that not every reaction? I want this, I don't want that. That's the second reaction. But in particular, negative reactions are divided further into another binary set, which is fight or flight. So second reactions, I want, I don't want. Comes up involuntary. You have a reaction, something happens, and before you know it, something wants it or doesn't want it. Isn't that a miracle? But we're never there to see that take place because we're already identified with the conditioning of wanting or not wanting things that we have known before, things from our past. So the second reaction, when things that we are negative, when we are resistance, fight or flight. And depending on what that reaction is, it tells us what we can or cannot do about what we don't want. You follow me? This is all the second reaction. Did you know all this was going on inside of you? God bless the truth that God has given. And because of our mechanical relationship with these second reactions, the only thing that we understand about them is what they tell us is true about the moment. And what the reactions tell us is true about the moment is it's for me or it's against me. And that's the summary of my experience with being a creation. I am ceaselessly made in the image of the reaction, the second reaction that tells me what has happened. And then when it tells me what's happened, it goes into this conditioned mind. It finds the me that knows how to deal with it or me that's afraid of it. And then I meet life again and again and again. It's called reincarnation, is it not? When this reaction is for us, beautiful. How many of you have a problem with pleasure or confirmation? No, the reaction's for us. This is great. Look how great. Life is wonderful. Look how well it's going. And of course, the entire sense of yourself is predicated on being identified with something that is along the lines of what you've known before or furthering what you hope to become. All still part of the past. But when the moment seems to be against us, when the second reaction is in the fight or flight mode, in that moment, what are we looking for? In the throes of that experience, what is it that nature that has had that reaction is looking for? John said solutions. Fix it. How about pure and simple? Power. I need some power. I need some money. I need some authority. I need a new body. I need to have a better golf swing. I'm talking personally now. John says, yeah, I need power. When Satan tempted Christ in the desert, what was he tempting him with? To be a God unto himself. And that's what happens when my gods have seemingly let me down. I just simply imagine a new God through the reaction, which is what reactions do when they imagine a time to come and the power needed to get there. And I'm off and running to the races again, except for one problem. What's the problem? The race never ends. Does it? So here we have something that never stops imagining what it is that we have to do to overcome a reaction, and it tells us that we'll find the solution to that reaction in what? In the next reaction. In the image the reaction creates. Thou shalt have no false gods. Please? Yes? So what we need to do is to first, and this is the difficult part, and I tell you, for lack of better words, this idea that when I have a painful reaction, the second reaction, that somehow or other, that in the throes of the content of that reaction exists what I need to find in order to escape the captivity of that reaction, that is called purgatory. That is purgatory. That is identifying with an image that promises to save me, creating in time what that image tells me I will become when I get there, and then when I get there to find out it was powerless to save me from the reaction that I never can escape because it belongs to an unconscious nature that just reiterates and reiterates the same thing over and over again. And we do that for 10,000, 20,000, a million years. I don't know how long that goes on. But I can tell you it goes on a pretty darn long time. Do you need to know anything about your deep, deep past to know that you're in purgatory here? Because you are. Every time you try to escape a moment, you enter into purgatory, and you enter into purgatory to escape the moment that was created by purgatory. Still interested? So what do we need? Not a Ghostbuster. I need a new authority. I need a completely different authority. And if I can use my mind even remotely properly, whatever this authority that I need, it can't have a name. Because I've named every authority possible. I've been given the name of every iconic authority through time. I've done my puja, I've sat at the altar, I've made my worship, I've made my I've done everything I've been told that will bring this authority into my life. I've sold my soul for it. And that's what a sleeping human being does every day. But it hasn't rescued me. And I understand beyond the shadow of doubt, if you do, and I hope that you do, I couldn't have this longing, let alone know that my road through this life was purgatorial, unless there was something in me that was capable of recognizing that all of this didn't work. If I was just simply this mechanical mind, simply a turkey that didn't know any difference between to look up and drown while looking at the rain, if I didn't know any better than that, I'd just be a dead turkey instead of a living turkey. From turkey to eagle. How about that for a book title? I need to look elsewhere. Now, all the true teachings tell me what? Where does it tell me to look? It tells me to look within. Chris said it tells me to look up. In spiritual language, up is within. It tells me to look within. But we must, if we're going to learn to look within, we have to understand what it means to look within. If I'm listening to something tell me who I am and what I need to do or what's wrong with you, am I looking within? If I'm listening to any thought, am I looking within? But it feels like, doesn't it? There's this relationship. I'm within. I'm trying to sort this out. I'm in the throes of this crucible. You're not within anything other than a world outside of yourself, dedicated to ensuring through your reactions produced by that world that you remain in service to it. And that's it. Every true teaching says that it is possible for a man or a woman to discover already within themselves everything that already dwells within themselves that is wise and true and good. Your own experience should tell you that when you discover anything true and good, where do you discover it when you finally do? Did it come from outside? Or was it a sudden light that was born in the darkness? And that's what the scriptures say. The light shineth in the darkness doesn't understand it. It is he who reveals the profound and hidden things. He knows what is in the darkness, and the light dwells within him. Mark, for whatever is hidden is meant to be disclosed, and whatever is concealed is meant to be brought out into the open. So here, and that's Western. Same thing, all across the board. The issue is, if I have some sense of that, how do I begin to access and actualize the moment in which I am deluded and misled by a second reaction into recognizing the second reaction for what it is, so that I can't be tempted by it? You follow me? How do I receive this living divine authority? That's our inner work, is it not? And that's what we're going to look at now, halfway through the talk. Take a deep breath. Follow this and see it with me. This is useless if you just listen or sit there like you're in a movie. That's why we don't let food in the room while I'm talking. This is entertaining. I don't like that. Do you like this part of the movie? I don't like this part at all. Popcorn's available afterwards at a small price. Yes or no? There is the light of that awareness that reveals an aspect of my nature that I didn't know was there before. Yes or no? There is a certain kind of light and awareness that comes to me by the grace of God, whether I want it or not sometimes, unbeckoned, and it comes and it does what? It shows me that I'm walking around spring-loaded with all kinds of strange, strained, stressed parts of myself that just need a tiny little tweak to trigger them. Yes or no? I had no idea that I was ready to start pulling the hair out of my head until you said what you said. I had no idea that I could have that much violence in myself, that in a heartbeat I could go from somebody who's going, isn't this beautiful out here, into you, what's wrong with you? That's always a shock, isn't it? Now, usually when we have that shock, it is attended to by what? A second reaction. Something that then justifies and qualifies the violence, the darkness, the anger that has suddenly risen up outside of me and taken me away like the wind does the leaf. Yea or nay? So that light that lives in the darkness, that the darkness does not know, exists for what purpose? To torment the darkness? Please think with me. Is that what the light does? That the light that enters into the vine that gives birth to the branch, does the light enter into the vine to torment it into creating a branch? Or is it all a ceaseless flow of one order of being into another, the outcome of which is the fruit of something that can only exist through the conveyance of these forces? Yes? Exact same thing with us. So there is a light that comes into me. We've all known that. You wouldn't be here if we hadn't had that moment. But in the same moment of that revelation, and is that not, I'm trying to go slow enough. Am I going slow enough? Yeah. So that in that moment of awareness, that awareness is the same as what? There has to be something that I am made aware of. So that light, that awareness is, in fact, a revelation. You always wanted to know what a revelation is? I'm telling you. A revelation is the appearance of something that was unknown, invisible the moment before. So the light acts upon what is in the dark, and in the dark is suddenly revealed to the darkness that which the darkness did not know about itself. I had no idea that I was that crazy. Not judging. I had no idea that I would lie to protect myself. and then out of my mouth is coming lies. I had no idea that I could be that defensive at the drop of a hat and then be sure that the reason I'm defensive like that is because you are the way you are. All of that's painful. I had no idea that there was that much latent pain laying in a conflicted consciousness that could be brought in a split second into becoming a second reaction that is filled with all the reasons why it has appeared to do and continues to do what it does. Yes? So we got two steps. First, there is this light that comes into this darkness, and then there is the revelation of what was not known in there before. Yes? Now, in the moment of that light, acting upon that which was acted on by it, does that have a name? Can it have a name? It never existed before. That I never existed before. And yet, the interaction and intersection of those confluent forces creates and reveals another order of I. An I that is not and cannot be taken away by a second reaction. A new order of I, true self, real mindfulness, call it what you will. So there is that moment without a name, yes? And then what happens? Second reaction. The second reaction is actually a part of an extension of the unconscious nature from out of which it has come. And the extension of that unconscious nature through this second reaction is to ensure the continuity of that unconscious nature, even if it hates itself because of that second reaction. And how many of us know the second reaction of hating ourselves? Can I hate myself without judging myself? So that here we have a hint about something about this second reaction. It always involves a judgment. It always involves being apart from the condition it blames for the conflict it's in. That's its key signature. And in that moment that it has that second reaction, what's going on as all of this is taking place? Here's the light. Here's the will of the divine. In an endless state of reconciling, constantly balancing the disparity between the two kingdoms and the creatures within it. And here's this light, and suddenly it reveals one of these characters that it reveals for the intention of bringing it into an integration with itself, so that the light acts on the darkness doesn't know it, because the darkness doesn't know it, and it fears itself, it fears what is brought up, has this second reaction. But this moment of intersection and interaction has brought about what we've described as what? We can call it awareness. We can call the moment of creation. It makes no difference. The point is that in it there is a completely new sense of I. An entirely new sense of I that knows, while it is neither just the light that has acted on the darkness, and nor is it just the darkness that has been acted on, it knows that it is greater than the sum of these parts. Without taking thought, it knows that it is greater than the sum of these parts. Can you see that with me, yes or no? To some extent, I'll help explain it. Let's bring up the third key lesson, please. This is quite important to understand. I'm kind of a first summary. Read along with me. We are at once both the intersection of active and passive forces, as well as the interaction between them, ceaselessly becoming what is newly conceived in their marriage. so that we are at once not only invited as guests to witness this union, but if we agree to attend to these moments, whatever their nature, we will see that it is and always has been our wedding. We are at once both the intersection of active and passive forces of heaven and earth, brought together in a confluence, as well as the interaction between them, ceaselessly becoming what is newly conceived in their marriage. Is there not always something newly conceived when the light of the sun touches the earth? Something always newly conceived in that marriage. And we are at once not only invited to be a conscious guest, to witness this union, but if we can agree to attend to these moments, if we can develop the attention to remain in these moments, what we will see through that attention is that it is our wedding. It used to always bother me in the New Testament, and it should really bother most everybody, to tell you the truth, because nobody bloody understands a single word in it. Always used to bother. I'm a man, how can I be a groom? Everybody's called the groom of Christ. They are. Bride as well. How's that? Because the wedding is here. I've always taken the wrong seat and been kicked out. The wedding is here. Life is the wedding of heaven and earth. Heaven being non-corporeal, infinite, timeless, earth being substantive in time, a constant creation in need of further perfection, so that what is perfect acts on what is imperfect, and in the marriage of perfection and imperfection, the creation of a new creature that goes through the same iteration again. We are intended to attend that wedding so that we are the new creature, that we are reborn moment to moment to moment. Are we communicating? Our task, if we've understood this key lesson, is what? What's my task? What's my task? If I'm the intersection of these forces, and that these forces have no name, but that out of that nameless union is a new conception, and that both of these forces are within me and acting on me, then what's my task? As best as I can, to be there at the wedding. Where, as hard as it is to understand, I am the bride and the groom. Am I not? Am I not active and passive, yin and yang? All of these at one point, complementary forces brought together to produce something that is beyond comparison. That is I. So our task is to remain as consciously attentive as possible. To do what? Please, this is where it gets complicated, because what do I do? To do what? Is seeing doing? If I'm a witness to the beauty of a moment like this spring day, is that something I'm doing, or is that something I'm being given? So there's no doing in being a witness. There is the silent awareness that something in me is always trying to do something, yes or no. And the attempt to do something with the moment is always the effect of the second reaction, because it's never content. You've never had a reaction that was content to remain unattended. You have never had a second reaction of any kind that was content to remain unattended. It always required you to do and be something else, did it not? So that in this moment of awareness of what is nameless, what's going on? These are words, but you'll understand it. It's to see everything that is being revealed in that moment, including the second reaction. It is to see everything that is being revealed in that moment, including the second reactions of judging myself. Let's take a moment. What would some of these second reactions be? You tell me. What are some of Terry? Anger is that the anger is always, by the way, the born of the resistance to what that disturbance has revealed in me. So that anger, all such states are in fact buffers. They hide within us by dragging us into their nature. Anybody else? What, Ellen? Fear. That's a huge one. God, I'm ready. I'm ready to, listen to me. You must go ahead and explode. Not outwardly. That's fission. Sally. Resentment. Yeah, constant resentment all the time. It's just like that. I have leased an electric vehicle, and the thing is like my mother. It just never stops talking to me. My mother's gone. This thing's still here. It has more beeps and buzzers and alerts than you can shake a stick at. There's nothing you can do that it doesn't know before you do it that you're about to make a mistake. So yesterday when I was coming home, the next thing I know, somebody's right on my tail honking at me. No, that my car would have told me if something was going on. You have to understand that. There was no beeper, no. Then he pulls alongside me. He rolls down the window. His girlfriend has 2 rings in her nose and something, God only knows what happened to her face. And he flips me a certain expression with his hand. You know what he's doing, right? And then he screeches off. And then he comes to a light 10 seconds later. And then I pull up next to the light. And I start to look over, and then I'm thinking, I feel sorry for this man. The second reaction was there as anger, right? Why is he judging me like that? But the awareness of the second reaction, if you have it, gives birth to compassion, because real intelligence always has compassion. And I rolled down my window as he's rolling his. And he said, "What's wrong with you, sir?" I said, "Sir, I don't know why you're so angry. Let's just say I made a mistake, and I'm happy to say that if that's what you want. Why the anger? Because you shouldn't be this way and you shouldn't be that way." And no matter what I tried to give him, he couldn't receive it, because he preferred the identity, the strength of that sense of self from the second reaction, than seeing that he was in purgatory, because he will always be accusing someone of cutting him off, whether it's in a car or in life. Do you see it with me? So we need to become aware of the second reaction. The interaction and intersection of active and passive forces is awareness itself. You can only be in that awareness. It has no name. But anything in you that starts to name the moment is part of the second reaction to that disturbance. You following me? Let's bring up the last and fourth key lesson. This is deep. Let's study it together. God willing, you'll download it. The seer neither has nor needs words to be in an undivided relationship with what is being seen. Seeing is wordless, while the words for whatever is revealed conceals its truth. Higher self-understanding has no reason for the moment of its revelation. Higher self-understanding has no reason for the moment of its revelation. First part, the seer neither has nor needs words to be in an undivided relationship with what's being seen. Do you need words when you see a perfectly beautiful moment? Do you? Or do words enhance the beauty of the moment? Or words limit and confine you to the content of that regurgitated experience, yes or no? So the seer has no need, no words to be in an undivided moment with what's being seen. That's the nature of awakened life. That's what an awakened life is. A human being who no longer needs words, reactions to be in a relationship with life, because the relationship itself gives and sustains everything that that nature needs in that moment. Seeing is wordless. Is not seeing wordless? When you see, do you see wordlessly, or do you see your words for what's being seen? Right? I see the words. What's wrong with him? All I see is my knowledge of how you should be or not be. That's what I see, yes or no? And that's a second reaction, isn't it? And in the second reaction, how is it justified? Through all the words that I use to dress the pain that I'm in for for unconsciously being separated from you, so that I believe somehow I'm superior or inferior to you. It's all the same thing, isn't it? So seeing is wordless, yes or no? So that would be a good tell, wouldn't it? If I'm a talking to myself, I ain't a seeing. Write that down, Charlie. That's Montana talk. If I'm talking to myself, I'm not seeing. So if I'm talking to myself, something does not want to be seen. Pure? For whatever is revealed in that moment is concealed by that second reaction. Whatever is revealed in that moment is concealed by the second reaction. Why? Because that's what identification is. You can't identify with awareness. God, try to see it. Can you identify with awareness? Go identify with the sky. Go identify with an open night. You can't identify with awareness. So if I'm identified with something, it's not awareness. What I'm identified with is something that said you need to be aware of that so that you can do something about this and therefore escape what? Being reborn, seeing the truth of yourself. What do you think the exercise is? Simple. Watch for the second reaction. Obviously, the first and foremost exercise of all of our work is to, however we say it, be present, mindful, attentive, keeping our mind and heart and body all in one place, unified. First intention, but not so good. Because everything captures me. But am I captured by the moment my mind points to? Or am I captured by the reaction that points to what my mind knows and then tells me what to do about because it's had past experience with it? So I just want to be aware as best I can of these second reactions. Now, we just said what some of these second reactions are. Didn't we? Essentially, an incessant, ceaseless string of some form of negative reaction that includes judgments, fear, resentment, anger, all of these things, these second reactions, when they appear, how can I know that I am, let's go back to the first key lesson, that I am, in fact, instead of letting these reactions move through the limbs of this life, being carried away from them, carried away by them. How do I know when I'm being carried away? You can't see this, but if the apprentice and the senior angel were here, here's what you would see when you're talking to somebody. You would see them take their own right hand, grab themselves by the back of the shirt, and start pulling themselves left or right. That's what you would see. You would see something pulling on or pushing that man or woman. You don't know when you are being pulled on or pushed around because you're identified with the reaction that is blowing through this mind to try to bring it into the peace it's imagined has been taken from it. Catch that feeling. You can do that much. You can be aware of this. Always a contraction. Is there a contraction in awareness There's no contraction in awareness, and yet awareness can know everything about contraction and expansion, can't it? Because awareness is the sum of these two forces. Do you have an idea how to work? Remember, we're talking about this living light. Where is this living light? Is it in thought? Can I ever nail it down? Can I own it? Can I buy some? Can I convince it that I'm worthy? Huh? Can I hate myself enough that it comes into my life? Do you get where I'm going with this? The living light is nameless and blameless. You got a name, you got a blame, you got nothing. You be aware of the name and the blame, you have a momentary awareness of a consciousness doing everything it can to escape what it fears is the consequence of being awakened. When you can understand that the awakening of that consciousness is your salvation, is your rebirth, and your entrance into a completely new line of life that light has given birth to. Let's take a break, come back and have our dialogue.
on and get started with our Q&A. There he is. Guy, do you wish to open with any remarks, or shall we just jump right in?
No, we can just jump in, but do remember before we close the event to tell people about our next special Wednesday, Kate.
Yes, for sure. Well, I'll just go ahead and do it now. So Guy has started this new class for us the last Wednesday of each month. So that will be this coming Wednesday, the 24th, I believe. Deep Dive Wednesday. So if you participate in our classes, you know that we always do a Discovery Wednesday each Wednesday class, where you guys get to participate a little bit and engage in the discussion with Guy. But this is taking it one step further, where you can actually send in anything that you have heard in the classes or anything that you've read in Guy's works, which you want to get a deeper understanding of, something that maybe you just want to know a little bit more clearly what it means. You can send in those writings to us, and Guy will go into them in depth on Wednesdays, Deep Dive Wednesdays. So we already have a couple in the queue, which is great, but go ahead and send your notes, and we keep a list of all of them so that you will get them answered eventually. So go ahead and just send them in anytime. You can go to our contact form on our website, which is guyfinley.org/contact.
Okie dokie.
All right, Guy, we have 2 hands up already, so I am going to go to Paul in the queue, and he'll start us off.
Hello, Guy.
Hi, Paul.
So I'm not sure if I have a right to ask this question, but I'll preface it just by saying that no matter where I go, what I do, what I gain or lose, everything seems to lead back to a great sadness in me. And I guess I'm just wondering, why is there so much sadness in me? And is that a second reaction?
It's
That's
an addiction to your favorite sense of self. You need to see the love-hate relationship you have with your sadness. I say I hate it, but I spend all my time with it. I push it away at every opportunity, but I never push it away so far that I can't have it the moment I remember it. And something in me always wants to remember what I lost or could have had or might have been. Wake up, Paul. Wake up. That's what this class is for. Not to revel in what is ruining your life, but to realize that you have an unconscious relationship with something that wants to ruin your life so that it can have the life it wants at your expense. There's no soft pedaling that, and I won't. That's my answer, Paul. Stay close.
Thank you. Yes.
All right, Fiona also wishes to speak.
He's not alone. Do you understand that? His favorite drug is sadness because his favorite experience that he lost is to remember it. Your favorite experience is to have an enemy. Your favorite experience is to worry about money. Your favorite experience is to concern about your health. When am I going to die? I don't want to die. You fill in the blank. Your mind brings it up. It triggers the second reaction the minute it comes up, and then off you go running like a leaf carried by the wind to nowhere, to death itself, if you don't understand that. So don't feel sorry for Paul. He feels sorry enough for himself. Okay, on to Fiona.
Hello, Guy.
Hi, Fiona.
This perhaps could be something that I'd love to delve into a little deeper on a Wednesday, that Wednesday class. But that living light of awareness is light, and through light is the all creation, and we have the ability to be aware of that. And I have it's been profoundly painful this week. I had to make a tough decision to put my beautiful German Shepherd to sleep, who's been with me for more than 11 years of immense companionship. And
Yes.
that light of awareness, I feel I got more awareness of that through 1 minute of being with her unspoken than I ever would in 10,000 years of going out and doing something, even if it's work or even if it's, helping people get better. It was the essence of me through that light, because I'm light and everything in creation is light. And so my comment my question really is that essence in her. Since I have awareness, there is awareness of everything, but is her essence able to change like our essence is able to change from awareness?
Yeah, Fiona, your question is so loaded. I want to be careful to answer and encourage at the same time that I don't guide you falsely and give you hope in something that's unreal. It's a delicate balance. First, just so you know, maybe one of the greatest pains in my life, and God only knows why, hasn't been the loss of my mother or my father or even my brother, but a little 80-pound female Rottweiler by the name of Tess. I stopped trying to explain it to myself a long time ago. Gosh, what kind of person are you that you grieved this animal while it was dying, and because you knew months in advance? You didn't grieve your father's passing months in advance. What kind of person are you? All of these second reactions. Fact is, whatever the reason is, that animal and I had a deep connection. What is the connection between a man and a dog? I could tell you beautiful North American stories about how when the great creator was going to separate animals from human beings, he put this line, he started to separate the two worlds, and at the last minute, dogs jumped over the gulf to be with humans. I mean, these are great stories. And if you've ever loved an animal, you understand. Somehow or other, in them, through them, we get to meet parts of ourselves that, as is true of anything, Fiona, we would never know it. The problem is that we become identified with that. Now, a living creature emanates by its nature more than that moss-covered ancient tree stump that I wander by in the sequoias. But they're still telling me something. They're still showing me something. They're still animating something in myself that has a corresponding character, or I couldn't feel the affection or the bond. Same is true on the converse, I might add. Now the next part is this, Fiona. I believe that anything we love is changed by our love. Love not like, oh, I love Tess, or I love my shepherd, or I love my hamster. Love is an unbeckoned mutual attraction between two creatures by which they are fulfilled through their relationship with one another. Has no judgment in it, really has no name whatsoever. So that you can, I do, I love the girls, the deer that visit me. Some of them I love more than others. Tata's my favorite. Tammy, who is the matriarch of all, has become a real bitch. But her demanding is the result of my relationship with her. even Frankie the turkey. We have a great relationship. I could actually say I love Frankie because I enjoy being with him. Now, does he enjoy being with me? I think he enjoys the food I give him. And yet there's some trust. It's not just conditioning. Mostly conditioning, yes, but some trust that an animal has of a human being that no other animal like Frankie may have, save for others that are treated with kindness. Does that develop Frankie himself? I don't think Frankie's coming back. But all of the Frankies to come will be touched by something that is changed in the nature of that creature. I believe this with all of my mind and heart. It is my life. If I wasn't here, and sometimes I wish I was rather in Africa on a game reserve taking care of animals. They're better than human beings in many ways. But the job is to bring the animal in us into the divine ark, that we might be saved, so that future generations that are born of our consciousness and from our consciousness are no longer slaves to the second reactions like we are. So, Fiona, a long answer. Don't know if I should have gone that deep, but don't wonder what becomes of my love. Then it's not love anymore. That's all. On we go.
All right, I need to do a quick note here, techie note. So if you're on YouTube, can you please send me a note if you can hear me? Just set into the chat area there, because I see a bunch of notes saying that you guys were not able to hear me during the announcement. So just want to make sure that that got fixed. But I'll go ahead and proceed. Let's see, I'm going to read a question that came in from Susanna Guy. Here it is. Susanna says, is the trigger the first reaction and the second is the emotional, anger, fear, any disturbance?
Let's clear it up, Susanna. As best we can. Without the interaction and intersection of divine forces, of what is light coming in that is timeless, and the light in the forms that have been made from it being acted on it, without that relationship, there's no creation. That creation you can call a reaction, but not a reaction that is in time, because it is a timeless action. What comes out of that interaction and intersection that is creation and that is awareness of creation at the same time, what comes out of that, God help us, is not just the real sense of self, of I, of the divine rebirth, but what comes out of that is the second reaction, because that moment cannot go unnamed by something that wants to be in control of everything that it sees and goes through. So it names that moment. The naming of that unnamed creation is the second reaction, and all judgment is subsequent to it. I hope that helps you. Let's go on.
All right, I have no hands or comments. Is there anyone in the room who wishes to speak?
Terry's coming up.
Hi, my name is Terry. So the awareness, it would see, it would be aware of that coming in, and it would automatically die to that.
You don't, how do I say this to you? At every possible level, life is a wedding. From the highest point to the lowest point, and every subcreation between, they all exist because of a wedding. Mm-hmm. Every last one is the effect of a relationship between the forces involved in that kingdom. Can you interfere with that wedding? Is there anything you can do to interfere with that wedding?
No.
No, it's happening. But something in us isn't happy because there's no separate self in the wedding. The wedding is revealing there's no separate self, and I happen to want to go on.
That's right.
I want to be he who went through this, she who didn't do that, the me who lost this, the one who is betrayed by that, the one who never amounts to anything, the one who's never going to have a good golf swing. There is something in me that wants to be that. You say, no, I don't want to be that because I resist all of that. When you resist something, it is the second reaction in the perpetuity of the pain it says it doesn't want.
Right, exactly. And actually, yesterday there was I don't want to name it, I could feel a shift in myself, something moving. And then I saw something that wanted to figure out what it was.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's the second reaction.
Exactly.
Is the one that wants to judge through comparison and arrive
Make
at some
something of
conclusion.
it.
That's right. I think that's what John was alluding to. He had a little moment where instead of being carried away by a second reaction, something not of this earth happened to him. And that's true. That's exactly what it is. Not of this earth, but the rebirth of earth, of John, for a moment. Now you know something's possible that you didn't know before. What a moment that is. You can live in it if you learn how to ask for it. I think we'll do that next Sunday. Anything else, Kate? Anyone else in the room? Otherwise, we can
Yes.
go.
Yep. Several questions have come in.
I waited too long.
All right, here's one that I'm going to read from Scott. I just sent it to you. Scott says, sell it all, then join me. Your first should be last. Lose yourself. Can't have two masters. Awake, repent. These all point to the one problem that Christ understood humans had. No, the truth will set you free. From what? Who you think you are?
By George, you've got it. Now live it. It's a miracle, you know. First, that these teachings exist. Secondly, that there's a body that they're coming through. But even more importantly, that you can see how often you miss the mark. And then instead of when you miss the mark, let the second reaction prove to you that you really do love God and you really care. Use the second reaction to die to the reacting nature. Then you have a miracle, that it can be done and that you can participate it in that way. On we go, Kate.
All right, here's a question from Frida. Hello, Guy. I wanted to tell a whole story here about my 8 sisters and 5 brothers and what it all means.
Oh my God.
Hallelujah. But then came, this is not me telling this is my pain going to tell this whole story again. There's a lot that I have to do, but all these stories are not going to help me move forward. Is this right? Thank you, Guy.
An angel has whispered in your ear, Frida. It goes, shh. If you hear anything other than shh, you're listening to the wrong thing. That's all I got. Kate? Thou hast disappeared, huh?
Hello, Guy. In last Wednesday's talk, you quoted a passage from Timothy in the New Testament, which is, God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of a sound mind. Can you clarify what this means? And of a sound mind? Thank you so much.
Is this question from today or from last week, Kate?
It says there on last Wednesday's talk, 4/17/24, and Chris sent it to me to read to you.
I understand. What I'm asking is, did she submit this today or did it come in before today's talk? Before today's talk. Yeah. Lucy, I answered this question in totality. Just listen to the talk. Everything that you need to know is in it. Why did God not give us a spirit of fear, but a spirit of a powerful, sound mind? Because God has given us in his image the light that we are in that image. This is what's so hard for us to understand. We're addicted to the taste of ourself. The taste of ourself is a binary taste, sweet and sour, which happens to be true, by the way, of the tongue. So that I need power when I feel powerless. But the reason I don't feel powerless sometimes is because I feel like I have power. But the power I have is always diminished by any moment that challenges the identification with it, so that I'm in an ever state of vacillating between yes and no, want and not want. I'm always in the hands of a second reaction. Light, see, this is why I don't know how much I can say. We can see the sunlight, can we not? What is the sunlight acting on? Itself. You and I are congealed suns. We wouldn't have a body, there wouldn't be an earth, there would be no creature, let alone anything animated, unless this divine light, whatever you want to call, and you shouldn't name it, this original source of light. From it, from the Word came all that was, and nothing existed that wasn't made from that. It acts on itself. One day you will know that it is you acting on you to bring about a revelation that there's no difference between the light and your true self, that they are in fact a singularity. And that's when you disappear. But you don't disappear from life, you become life itself in that moment, which is our aim. More? Kate, I can see something.
Yes, I have 2 written questions and I have a hand up in the queue.
Oh.
Let's go to this one from Lori.
Okay.
Hi, Guy. I had been studying with you for years and then faced a life-altering occurrence. A relative I had the most closest bond with in my entire life committed suicide because of a devastating health diagnosis. To compound my pain, I was his sole caregiver for 4 years. Found him in a couple of days before he had held both of my hands. A couple of days before he had held both of my hands in his and told me he loved me so much and that I was the most important person in his life.
Yeah.
I understand today's teaching, but wonder how someone can apply it to the level of shock and pain one feels after an experience such as this. Asking because it has been a year and a half, and even though medication and therapy doesn't seem to be helping. Thank you, Lori B.
The one thing we never know because of this second reaction that is literally in perpetuity is the full extent of ourselves in any given moment. The full breadth and measure of all that I am being given to see and to be. We never know that. Because something always comes in before the full measure is known, to measure it, to make sure it doesn't go too far or that it isn't too much. Whatever isn't complete will repeat itself until it is completed, and it is completed. when the full measure of it is known to no longer be apart from myself that sits there and wants or doesn't want the experience to go on. I don't know if you'll be able to follow this, Lori, or anyone else for that matter, but I'll say it because it's true. I've even mentioned this maybe once before, I think. I remember when I was a boy, and my spiritual work began pretty early for whatever reason. I always saw that when I started to cry, and usually my crying was some kind of rage, some kind of disappointment, some kind of betrayal, something that wasn't going my way. Why me? Self-pity, which is what most crying is. I became aware of that there was this very strange pain in my crying, in my sorrow. Aware of a very strange pain in my sorrow. And you know what the strange pain was? I wanted to cry and I didn't want to at the same time. Something in me wanted to cry, something else was resisting it. And there was pain in that. And I'm thinking to myself, why don't I just go and cry? So I said to myself, you know what, Guy? Next time this starts, just go for it. Just cry. Cry as hard as you can for as long as you want. And you know what happened? I couldn't cry. I felt sadness, but there were no tears of self-concern or pity in them. There was no thinking about anyone or anything else. There was just the pure awareness of the fact that there was a grief, an anger, a sorrow, but that its life was fueled by me not wanting it or by me wanting to be free of it by blaming someone for it. It was so clear to me that from that day, I'll never write it. I'm never going to write all the things that I want to write in my life. I'm too busy writing things for y'all. But I'd have a book called 10,000 Tears. Why 10,000 tears? Because I have wiped at least 10,000 tears from my own face and rubbed them on my own heart in the hope that one day the weeper and the heart that brings the weeping forward would no longer be separate from one each other, and I could understand what's the nature of this sorrow, what's the nature of this sadness, instead of giving myself to it and always listening to the reaction tell me how to resolve it or why it's there. I wanted to understand it purely. You will understand everything you've asked, Lori, when you want to understand it purely. Give yourself completely to it. And if you can, God willing and God hoping that you're able to understand this, get yourself, I better not say it, don't do anything that interferes with this grief. Let's put it that way. That's my answer.
That mean you're ready for me?
Yeah.
Great. Here's another question that came in. I'm going to send it to you. This is from Raymond. How do I observe my thoughts without first thinking about them? I find myself thinking first, then going over what I was thinking and observing it.
Yeah, when you're going over what you were thinking, you're thinking, not observing. Raymond, we have to, how do I say it? I got what I got. I am what I am, said Popeye. All I have is what I've got, what I know. I got nothing else. I can't call on what I don't know. I do, but I shouldn't. What do I know? I know that when I see beauty, when I hear certain music, God willing that I have some insight or epiphany, and there's a light that's revealing what's being given to me to see, I know in those moments there's no thought in that. When you have an actual lesson, is there thought in it? Or do you just see? Then comes the reaction. I want more of that. Why is that happening? What do I do? How do I get more of this? How do I stop thinking? Learn to see what goes on in you while you're thinking, and you won't want to think anymore. not about yourself anyway. So Raymond, don't try to observe. What did I say about seeing? Seeing is nameless. So let your seeing be how everything in you wants to name something. If you can see the namer, then you are no longer completely identified with the second reaction that gives rise to those names. Start with what you got. You all want to go to heaven. What's that country and western song? Nobody wants to die. You know, you're sold all the time what a cakewalk it is to become a conscious human being. I see it all the time. I see these spiritual teachers that, by the way, steal from me all the time. Steal, 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 so that they can then disseminate what they don't know. They're selling you what you want to hear so you can feel good about yourself in a time to come. And they count on triggering the reactions that will bring up that desire in you, and then you're carried off by the second reaction. Here you're told, and for no money at all, I might add, the truth. And why do you think that we have such a small gathering, even as global as it is, relative to the men and women who attract thousands to their in so-called churches? They're really tombs where they can dance and be merry and call on Christ and love one another until someone pulls up behind them, honks at them, and gives them an obscene gesture. Then they're ready to go to war. And then the second reaction will tell them, what would Christ do? And then they'll pretend to be Christ-like, and failing to see that pretending to be Christ-like is exactly what Satan was trying to get everyone to do with every temptation. The true moment is nameless, which is why thou shalt not have any graven image. Thou shalt not name myself. Do you understand? Over, Kate.
All right, I'm going to bring Larry in.
Okay. We're going to bring it to an end here. The people in the room are starting to fall out of their chairs. Too much. Let's bring in Larry.
Larry, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
All right, can you hear me, guys?
Perfectly, Larry.
Okay, great, great. I'm just trying to put this together in maybe a simple concept to help me walk in this life, being aware of myself. Basically, what I'm understanding is that creation is telling me to take a look at myself in the moment, see what leaves or events are shaking me, and then not to respond to them. Is that close to what we're talking about?
Kind of. You're breaking up, and I was just about to compliment the crew here. What a good job you've done with getting rid of this popping and all that. Sound's been perfect in my little earphone. He was breaking up, but I think it's because of his equipment. So what Larry basically asked was, is the task to not react, basically. No, Larry, the task is to not have a reaction and then try not to react. The task is to see the content of what comes up in you that produces the reaction. When you see that the second reaction, by and large, and I said it's always bifurcated, it's always binary. The second reaction doesn't exist without something that cannot leave the moment alone. That's what the second reaction is. It cannot leave the moment alone because the moment is either threatening it according to the meaning it gave the moment, or it's something it wants from the moment and it still can't leave it alone. It has to figure out how to get a little more. Learn to be the observer of your own reactions, the observer of your own thoughts. Silently see. If you will work to silently see, you will see how silence pays the one who acts with it. The payment for being silently seeing is that you start to become aware of the content of yourself that as it arises is nameless, and how there's a part of you that can't stand not knowing what's happening. Listen to me. You can't know what's happening. You've never been here before. But the part of you that wants to know what's happening wants to prove it's not only been here before, but now it knows how to get out of here, and it knows not. That's all I got, Kate.
All right, are we done in the room as well?
Yes.
All right, you can say goodbye.
Goodbye.